Let me tell you a secret. The most powerful English you'll ever speak doesn't come from textbooks. It doesn't come from grammar drills. It comes from your story. Yes, your story. The way you talk about your life, your challenges, your small wins, your culture, your dreams. When you tell your story in English, something magical happens. You stop memorizing. You start connecting. You stop being afraid. You start being real. That's what this episode is about. Not just speaking English, but owning your story in English, telling it with heart, and becoming confident, not because you're perfect, but because you're honest. Whether you're a beginner who only knows how to say "my name is," or an advanced speaker who's still afraid to speak up in meetings, this is for you. You're going to learn how to tell your story in a way that's simple, powerful, and unforgettable. We'll walk through it step by step. You'll hear real examples, learn how to build emotional connection, and discover that even the smallest story from your day can be a doorway to fluency. So take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let's begin this journey together. Why storytelling makes you fluent faster? Let me ask you something. Have you ever spent hours studying English only to freeze when someone asks? So, tell me about yourself. Your mind goes blank, not because you don't know English, but because you don't know how to share in English. Now imagine something different. Imagine you walk into a room, sit beside a stranger, and say, "Let me tell you a story from my life." Suddenly, your English doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. That's what happened to me. Back then, I was working at a small cafe in the mornings and studying English online at night. I could pass grammar tests, but when someone said, "So, what's your story?" I didn't know what to say. One day, I joined a free speaking group. The teacher asked, "Tell us about the best meal you ever had." I panicked. I almost didn't speak. But then I smiled and said softly, "When I was little, my father sold vegetables. One night we had only rice and one egg. He split the egg in four, so we each had a piece. That was the most delicious dinner of my life." The room went silent. Nobody corrected my grammar. Nobody cared if my accent was perfect, because what they felt was my story. After that, everything changed. I started practicing by telling one short story a day, at the bus stop, in the mirror, to my friends. I didn't need complicated vocabulary. I just needed my truth in English, and I became fluent. Faster than others who memorized 1,000 words but never spoke from the heart. You see, storytelling works because it connects emotion to expression. When you feel something, you remember it. When you share something, you own it. When you repeat it, you grow it. That's why babies learn to speak before they learn grammar. Because they're not trying to sound correct. They're trying to connect dots. So if you want to speak English fluently, stop chasing big words. Start telling small stories. Not perfect stories. Not dramatic ones. Just real ones. Like, "My grandmother used to sing while cooking," or "I lost my keys yesterday, and it taught me something." Your fluency is already inside you. It just needs a story to come out. So today, I invite you to stop thinking How do I say this right? And start asking, what story can I tell? Because the fastest path to speaking is sharing. The three core ingredients of every good story in Englishy used to think storytelling was complicated. I thought you needed drama, big words, or something exciting like traveling the world or surviving a shark attack. But then I realized something. The best stories are not about what happened. They're about how it made you feel. And if you want to tell a powerful story in English, one that makes people listen, smile, or even cry, you don't need perfect grammar. You just need three simple things. 1. A real moment. 2. A human emotion. 3. A clear message. Let me break it down. The first ingredient is a real moment, not a fantasy, not a made-up scene, but something that actually happened to you, big or small. Like the time I missed my bus and ended up talking to a stranger, or the moment I saw my mother crying for the first time. Real moments are powerful because they're yours. No one else can tell them like you. The second ingredient is a human emotion. Every story has a feeling inside it. Maybe you felt nervous, maybe proud, embarrassed, grateful, lonely, excited. If your story doesn't include a feeling, it's just a report. But when you say, I felt scared, or I was so happy I couldn't stop smiling, that's when people start to feel what you felt. That's when English becomes alive. And the third ingredient, a clear message. Every story teaches something, even if it's short. Maybe your story teaches patience, or kindness, or the importance of listening, or simply this: I made a mistake, and I learned from it. It doesn't need to be deep or philosophical. Even a story about burning your toast can have a message like, I was rushing too much that day, and I realized I need to slow down. So, whenever I prepare to tell a story in English, I ask myself, what moment am I going to share? What emotion was inside it? What message do I want someone to take from it? Once you have those three things, your story becomes real. It becomes powerful. And it becomes unforgettable, even with simple English. Here's a quick example. Moment. I dropped my phone in the river while taking a photo. Emotion. I felt helpless. Message. I realized I was too focused on capturing the moment instead of living it. That's a story. No fancy words, but it connects dots. So if you're ever stuck thinking, I don't know what to say in English, just remember this simple formula. Moment, emotion, message. Your story is already inside you. You just have to let it out. How to? Practice storytelling daily. Even if you're alone, here's something nobody told me. When I started learning English, you don't need an audience to become a great storyteller. You don't need a classroom. You don't even need another person. You just need you, and one quiet moment each day. I used to think that storytelling was something you do in front of others, on a stage, in a group, in a conversation. But the truth is, the best stories are born in silence. I remember one evening after work. I was exhausted, sitting on my bed, holding a cup of tea, and I thought to myself, today was hard, but maybe there's a story in it. So I started whispering to myself in English. I woke up late. The bus was gone. I forgot my lunch. But in the middle of all the stress, one old woman at the bus stop smiled at me and said, "You look tired. Everything okay?" And that small question made me feel human again. I didn't write it down. I didn't practice it. I just said it out loud to myself. And that became my new habit. Every day, I chose one moment, big or small, funny or frustrating. I would turn it into a story. Here's how you can do the same. Step 1. Pick one moment from your day. It could be anything. Your breakfast, a sound you heard, a thought you had while walking. Step 2. Say it out loud in English, even if it's just one sentence. Like, "I saw a little boy drop his ice cream, and he almost cried. But then his sister gave him her cone. That made me smile." That's a story. Step 3. Add one emotion. "I felt warm inside when I saw that." Now your English becomes alive. Step 4. Practice the same story again, but in a different way, shorter, longer, with new words, or in a slower, clearer voice. You're not just learning English this way, you're owning your voice. I practiced like this for months. In the shower, while washing dishes, walking alone, and something strange happened. I stopped being afraid of English because it stopped being a subject. It became part of me. No more pressure. No more is this grammar correct. Just, how can I tell this story from my day? So if you ever feel alone in your English practice, I want you to remember this. You already have the best speaking partner in the world. You. Your voice, your memories, your small daily moments. Speak them, shape them, share them, even if no one's listening. Because the more you practice telling your truth out loud, the more confident you'll become when others are listening. Your room is your classroom. Your life is your material. Your heart is your teacher. Let it speak. How to make your listener feel something. Even with simple English, let me tell you the truth. People won't remember every word you say in English, but they will remember how you made them feel. That's why storytelling isn't about big words. It's about big feelings. You can tell a story in broken English and still break someone's heart, or make them laugh, or move them to tears. Because emotion doesn't come from vocabulary. It comes from truth. I learned this the hard way. There was a time I focused too much on sounding advanced. I used words like nostalgia or melancholy. But when I told my story, no one reacted. Then one day, I said something different. I said, when I moved to the city, I missed my mom's soup. I tried to cook it myself. It didn't taste the same. And that made me cry. Silence. Then a classmate whispered, "I know that feeling." That's when I realized it's not how beautiful your English is. It's how honest it is. So how do you make your listener feel something? Let me give you 3 simple tricks. Slow down. Don't rush your story. Let your words breathe. Let your emotions show through your pace. Say it like this. I was alone, and the room felt too big for me. Now your listener feels the space. The pause. The wait. Use simple emotion words. You don't need poetic phrases, just real ones. Like, I was scared. I felt proud. I didn't know what to say. These are the words people trust because they're raw and human. Use sensory details. Help the listener see, hear, and feel the moment. Don't just say, I had dinner. Say, the soup was hot. The bowl steamed. I burned my tongue. But I didn't care. I was hungry. Now the story becomes alive. Even with beginner English, you can make magic. It's not about grammar. It's about honesty, pacing, details. You don't have to impress your listener. Just connect with them. Let them feel what you felt. Tell your truth, even in short, simple sentences. Because a story that touches the heart will always be more powerful than a story that shows off vocabulary. So next time you tell a story in English, don't ask, do I sound smart? Ask this instead. Will they feel something when I speak? Because feeling is what makes your story unforgettable. From boring to beautiful. How to transform ordinary moments into powerful stories. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like your life is too boring to talk about? Like you don't have exciting stories to tell in English? That used to be me. I didn't climb mountains. I didn't live in New York or fly across the world. I didn't have anything dramatic to say. But then something happened that changed the way I see stories forever. One evening, I was walking home. It was raining, not heavy, just soft. I didn't have an umbrella. I felt cold and annoyed. And suddenly, a little boy ran past me, dancing in the rain, laughing like it was the happiest day of his life. That moment lasted maybe 5 seconds. But that night, I told someone about it in English. And their eyes lit up. They smiled and said, that's such a beautiful image. And that's when I learned something powerful. It's not the moment that has to be beautiful. It's the way you tell it. Everyday life is full of stories. If you know how to look, let me show you how to turn the boring into the beautiful. Start small. Pick a moment from your normal day. Making coffee, feeding your cat, waiting for the elevator. Ask yourself, what did I notice? Was there a smell, a sound, a thought, a strange feeling? Even something like, my coffee spilled today, and I stared at the floor for 2 minutes thinking about how fast life moves can become a story. Add a human emotion. Maybe you felt frustrated, or peaceful, or nostalgic. Emotions bring color to gray moments. Use contrast. This is powerful. Say something like, it was a noisy street, but for some reason, my heart felt calm. That contrast between chaos and calm makes the listener pause and feel. Here's a real example I once shared. I waited 20 minutes for the bus. It didn't come. I was angry. Then I looked up and saw a bird sleeping in a nest on a traffic light. And suddenly, everything felt okay. That's not a dramatic story. It's not about adventure, but it's human. It's real. And it touches something deep. So if you ever think, I have nothing interesting to say, I want you to remember this. You don't need a big life. You just need an open heart. The way you see the world is already special. And when you describe it in simple English, it becomes a gift for someone else. So go ahead. Talk about your socks, your bus ride, your burnt toast, your quiet walk. If you can find a feeling inside the moment, you've already found a story. How to tell the same story in 3 different ways: beginner, intermediate, and natural stylion of the best ways I learned to grow in English was by telling the same story 3 different ways. I didn't need a new story every time. I just needed to go deeper with the same one. Let me show you exactly what I mean. I'll use a simple story, something from my real life. The story. I went to the market. I bought oranges. One fell. A woman picked it up and gave it back to me. We both smiled. Now, let's turn this into 3 levels of English. Beginner style. This version uses short sentences and basic grammar. I went to the market. I bought oranges. One orange fell. A woman helped me. She gave it back. I said thank you. She smiled. I smiled too. Simple, easy, clear. If you're a beginner, this is perfect. There's no pressure. You're still telling a full story with a beginning, middle, and end. Intermediate stylino, we add some linking words and emotional detail. This morning, I went to the market to buy some oranges. While I was walking, one orange fell from my bag. A kind woman saw it, picked it up, and gave it back to me. I thanked her, and we both smiled. It was a small moment, but it made my day better. Notice what changed. The sentences are longer added while, but, and most importantly, we added a feeling. It made my day better. This is the level where fluency starts to grow. Natural storytelling style. This version sounds like something you'd say in a real conversation. I went to the market this morning just to grab some oranges, and guess what happened? One of them slipped out of my bag and rolled across the ground. I was about to chase it when a woman nearby picked it up and handed it to me with a smile. I said thanks, and we both laughed. Funny how small things like that can make your whole morning feel a little lighter. Now we're using rhythm, real, speech, and emotional reflection. Words like grab, guess what happened? A little lighter, they sound real, human. Here's why this method works. Asterisk, you don't need new stories every day. You just need new ways to express them. Start with simple words, then grow the stories slowly. Add emotion, add color, add rhythm. That's how I built my confidence. I used one story about rain, or a broken shoe, or a dinner with my uncle, and I practiced it again and again in 3 ways each time. I wasn't just learning English, I was learning how to share who I am. So I want to challenge you. Pick one small story from today, then tell it like this. Simple version, detailed version, natural version, even if you're alone. Even if your English is basic right now, because your stories will grow with your language. And the more you tell them, the more you'll own your voice. The power of personal stories. Why your life is already the lesson. Let me say something from the heart. You don't need to be a teacher to teach something. You don't need a stage to have influence. And you don't need a textbook to share truth. Asterisk, because your life, just as it is already the lesson. When I first started learning English, I was afraid to share personal stories. I thought, who wants to hear about me? My life felt too ordinary. But But then, one day, I shared a simple memory. I said, when I was 10, I used to wait for my dad to come home. He always carried a small plastic bag with one snack for me. Sometimes it was warm bread, sometimes fruit. I didn't care what it was. It just meant he thought of me. I didn't expect much. But after I told that story, a woman from my English class came to me and said, "That reminded me of my own father. Thank you for sharing." And that's when it hit me. Personal stories carry power, not because they are dramatic, but because they are real. When you speak about your life, you invite others to feel something they forgot, to remember something they love, to see something new. Your story becomes a mirror, and people see themselves inside it. Let me be clear. You don't need to wait until your English is good enough. You don't need big vocabulary to move someone's heart. You just need your voice and your truth. Your story might be about growing up in a small village, failing your first job interview, making tea for your grandmother, saying goodbye to a friend, learning how to be a Lonnie, and every one of those is a gift. Because real stories teach real lessons. Passions forgive leftlisters. These are things no grammar book can teach, but you can, through your experience. So if you ever think, "I'm not smart enough," or "my story doesn't matter," I want you to stop, take a deep breath, and remember this. You are the story, and your story can change someone. Speak it with heart. Say it in simple English. Let it be raw. Let it be yours, because someone out there is waiting to hear a story that sounds like theirs. And maybe, just maybe, that story is inside you. The secret ingredient that makes people listen: vulnerabilities. Something most people don't tell you about great storytelling. It's not just about structure. It's not just about emotion. It's not even about confidence. The real secret is vulnerability. That's what makes people stop scrolling. That's what makes them lean in. That's what makes your English unforgettable. Not your accent, not your vocabulary, but your honesty. I learned this the day I told a story I almost didn't share. It was about the time I gave a presentation in English and completely failed. I froze. I forgot my words. My voice shook. People stared, and I walked out feeling ashamed. Later, I told that story in an English class. My hands were sweating. I felt embarrassed all over again. But I told it anyway. And do you know what happened? People didn't laugh. They didn't judge me. They opened up. One girl said, "I had the same thing happen last week." Another guy said, "That's why I'm scared to speak in public too." And suddenly, we weren't just classmates. We were human beings, connecting through a shared fear. That's the power of vulnerability. It turns your weakness into someone else's strength. It turns your shame into someone else's courage. So what does vulnerability look like in English storytelling? It looks like this. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid I wasn't enough. I cried in the bathroom after that. I failed, but I kept going. When you tell these parts of your story, the soft, honest, imperfect parts, you give people permission to be real with you. You stop performing, and you start connecting. So if you want to be a storyteller that people trust, don't just Tell the happy stories. Tell the hard ones. Tell the stories where you were lost, where you made a mistake, where you were tired, where you were human. Because that's the kind of English the world is hungry for. Not perfect, not polished, but honest. And here's the best part. You don't need to get better at English to be vulnerable. You just need to speak with your heart open. And when you do that, you won't just improve your English. You'll touch someone's soul. So go ahead. Tell the story you're afraid to tell. Say the thing you've never said in English before. Because the more honest you are, the more powerful your voice becomes. Storytelling for confidence. How speaking your truth heals fear. Let me tell you something honest. For a long time, I was afraid to speak. Not because I didn't have the words, but because I didn't trust my voice. Every time I opened my mouth in English, I felt small. What if I make a mistake? What if they laugh? What if I don't sound smart? That fear, it sat in my chest like a heavy stone. But everything changed when I started telling my story. Not someone else's. Not a perfect one, just mine. The first time I spoke about my childhood in English, I remember my hands shaking. I said something like, I used to walk to school in the rain. I didn't like it, but now, when it rains, I feel something warm. It was simple, but it was real. And do you know what I felt after that? Not fear, but freedom. Because when you speak your truth, even in broken English, you stop hiding. You stop pretending to be perfect, and you start being you. That's where confidence begins. Not after a test score, not after you memorize 1,000 words. Confidence begins the moment you say, this is who I am. This is what I feel. And I'm not afraid to share it, even in English. Here's the beautiful thing about storytelling. The more you share, the less fear you carry. Because fear hides in silence, but courage grows through voice. And storytelling gives you that voice. You might still feel nervous. That's okay. But now, instead of silence, you say, yes, I'm nervous. But let me tell you something that matters to me. And when you do that, even once, you'll feel something shift inside you. A small seed of self-trust. A whisper that says, I don't need to be perfect to be powerful. So if you're afraid to speak English, don't start with conversation. Start with story. Tell a memory, a dream, a small truth from your day, even if no one hears it, even if your grammar isn't clean. Because each time you tell a story from your heart, you heal a little bit of that fear. And one day, you look back and realize you didn't just learn English. You learned how to believe in yourself. Let's talk about something important now. How do you use storytelling in real life? Not just when you're alone, not just in your journal, but when it matters, in conversations, in interviews, in meetings. Because that's the moment many of us freeze. We want to sound smart. We want to say the right thing. And we forget the one thing people really remember, a story. Let me share what I learned from experience. I once applied for a part-time job where they asked me this question. Tell us about a challenge you faced. I could have said something generic like, I worked hard. I'm responsible. But instead, I told a story. I said, I used to deliver food by bicycle after class. One day, it rained so hard I couldn't see clearly, but I kept riding because a customer was waiting. When I finally arrived, soaked and cold, the customer smiled and said, "You didn't have to come in this rain." I just said, "But you were hungry." That one story said everything. I care. I don't quit. And I show up, even when it's hard. And they gave me the job. That's the power of storytelling in interviews. It shows who you are, without needing fancy words. Now let's talk about conversations. You don't need a long story. Sometimes it's just adding one line from your life. Imagine someone asks, "How are you?" Instead of saying, "Fine, try this." "Tired. I couldn't sleep last night because I was thinking about a conversation I had with my sister. She told me something that really stayed in my mind." Suddenly, you've opened a door. You've invited connection. And maybe they'll say, "What did she say?" And just like that, you're having a real conversation. This is how I practice. I take everyday questions and I answer them with a tiny story. "What did you do this weekend?" "I cleaned the house." And I found an old letter I wrote to myself 3 years ago. "What do you do?" I'm learning English now. Every morning, I tell a short story to myself while brushing my teeth. This makes your English more than language. It becomes human. And finally, what about presentations? When you give a speech or talk at work, don't start with facts. Start with a story. Maybe something like, "Before I talk about this business idea, I want to tell you how it was born. One night, I was eating noodles in a small shop. I noticed how quickly the server worked. No technology, just instinct. That night, I went home and started sketching an app idea that supports small food businesses like hers. And now, you've got everyone's attention because they're not just hearing ideas. They're seeing them through you. So here's what I learned. Wherever you go, whatever the situation, bring your story. It doesn't have to be long. It just has to be real. You don't need to be the best English speaker in the room. You just need to be the one who shares with heart. That's how people remember you. That's how opportunities find you. That's how your English becomes powerful, because it carries you. Building your story bank. How to prepare stories. For any situation, if you've ever felt nervous speaking in English because you didn't know what to say, this part is for you. Let me tell you what changed my life as a learner and speaker. I built a story bank, a simple habit, a powerful tool, a quiet confidence booster that helped me walk into any room, interview, classroom, or conversation and never feel unprepared again. So what is a story bank? It's a small personal collection of stories from your life, short, honest, and ready to be used anytime. You don't need 100 stories. You just need 5 to start. Maybe 10 over time. And these are not fiction, not dramatic. Just true moments from your own experience that carry meaning. Let me show you how I started mine. I grabbed a notebook. I wrote this question at the top. What are 5 moments that changed me? And then I answered. The day I stood up for myself for the first time. The time I failed a test I really studied for. The night my father came home and hugged me after a fight. The first time I cooked something on my own and burned it. The moment I realized I was good at helping others feel better. Then I did something important for each story. I wrote a title and a feeling. Burnt rice and growth. Humility the hug. Forgiveness standing up. Courage it became my story. Bank.now when someone asks me, tell me about a challenge. I go to the test I failed. When did you grow as a person? I tell burnt rice and growth. Why do you want this job? I use helping others feel better. And the best part, these stories are real, so they're easy to remember. And because they're personal, I don't have to fake anything. I speak from memory. I speak with feeling. And my English feels alive. Here's how you can start your own story bank. Step 1. Choose 3 to 5 categories. A happy memory. A mistake you learned from, a challenge you overcame. Time you helped somebody, a time someone helped you. Step 2. Write a title plus feeling for each. Keep it short and emotional. Lost wallet, kind stranger, gratitude last minute call. Panic and growth rainy walk home. Peace. Step 3. Practice telling each one out loud. Keep them short, 1 minute. Then expand if you want to. You don't need to memorize every word. You just need to remember the feeling. This way, the next time someone asks you something in English, you're not searching for grammar. You're reaching for a story. And that's when your English shines. Because when your stories are ready, your voice becomes ready too. No more awkward silence. No more I don't know. Just simple, powerful, human stories. Told with calm, connection, and confidence. Overcoming self-doubt. When you think your story isn't good enough, let me be real with you. Even now, after years of practicing English, there are days I still think, my story isn't interesting enough. Nobody wants to hear this. My life is too simple. And I know you've probably felt the same. It's easy to believe that storytelling is for people with dramatic lives, people who've climbed mountains, started companies, or survived something big. But let me remind you of something powerful. Your life is already enough. Yes, even the small days, even the quiet ones, even the ordinary things you go through, they matter. Because storytelling isn't about impressing people. It's about connecting. Let me tell you about a moment that changed me. I once shared a story in class about eating dinner alone. That's it. Nothing fancy. Just me, sitting with my food, feeling a little lonely. After class, a girl came up to me and whispered, "I feel the same way. Thank you for saying it out loud." That's when I realized the world doesn't need another perfect speaker. The world needs real voices. Your voice, my voice, voices that shake a little, that carry pain, that share joy, that speak in simple English, but come from the heart. If you're thinking right now, "But I haven't done anything special," let me ask you, have you ever helped someone? Even when you were tired? Have you ever felt afraid and tried anyway? Have you ever sat in silence, hoping someone would understand you? Those are stories. Those are gifts. And when you speak them, even in simple words, you give others permission to do the same. Let me tell you this. The doubt will always try to stay close. It will whisper, "Not good enough, not ready yet, not interesting." But here's the truth. You don't need to be interesting. You just need to be honest. You don't need perfect grammar. You just need a moment, a feeling, a truth you're willing to share. And when you do that, something beautiful happens. Your doubt loses its power, and your voice begins to rise. So the next time that voice says, "Don't tell that story," I want you to do the opposite. Tell it anyway. Even if your voice shakes, even if it's not long, even if it's not perfect, because your story matters, and someone, somewhere, is waiting to hear it, so they can finally believe that their story matters too. Why storytelling helps you think in English, not just translate. Let me ask you something important. When you speak English, do you sometimes hear your native language in your head first? You think in your own words, then try to translate, then speak. And in that space between thinking and talking, you freeze. I used to do that all the time. Someone would ask me, "What did you do this weekend?" And my brain would panic. I'd think in my language, then try to find the English. But it took too long. I'd say something awkward or go silent. That's when I realized I wasn't living in English. I was just translating it. But the moment I started practicing storytelling, everything changed. Why? Because stories don't live in translation. They live in pictures, in feelings, in memory. Let me show you what I mean. Think of this sentence. I ate dinner with my grandmother. You can memorize it or translate it. But now, imagine the story behind it. What color was the table? What did the food smell like? What was she wearing? What did she say to you? Suddenly, you don't need your native language. You don't need a dictionary. You see it, you feel it, and the English comes, naturally, slowly, but from you. That's why storytelling is powerful. It trains your brain to think in images, not words, to feel, then speak, not translate. When you tell a real story, you don't look for grammar, you look for meaning. And guess what? That's what native speakers do. They don't memorize phrases. They connect thoughts to feelings, and they speak directly from the picture in their mind. You can too. Let me give you an example. I used to walk past a bakery every morning. One day, I decided to stop and buy something. The smell, the warmth, the smile from the old man behind the counter. I remember it all when I tell that story. I don't need to translate it. I just go back to the memory and let the English flow. That's how you stop sounding robotic. That's how you stop overthinking. That's how you start sounding natural. So if you want to think in English, don't just study words. Tell stories. Practice them. Visualize them. Speak them out loud from your real life. You'll make mistakes. That's okay. Because every time you tell a story, you train your mind to speak from within, not from translation. And that's the moment when English stops being something you learn. It becomes something you live. How to use storytelling to build your own speaking style in English. Let me tell you something I wish someone told me earlier. You don't need to copy native speakers to speak well. You don't need to sound like someone else, because the most powerful English speaker is the one who sounds like themselves. And the best way to find that voice? Through storytelling. When I first started learning English, I tried to imitate others. I watched videos, listened to podcasts, memorized exact phrases, and yes, it helped me learn. But something was missing. I didn't sound like me. It was like wearing someone else's clothes. They fit, but they weren't mine. Everything changed when I started telling my own stories, in my own way. Not perfect, not fancy, but personal. And slowly, I discovered something beautiful. I had a rhythm. I had a way of pausing, of laughing, of using small words with big meaning. I had my own style, and it came from being real. That's what storytelling gives you. Not just language, but identity. So how do you use storytelling to build your own speaking style? Let me show you a few simple steps that helped me. Tell stories from memory, not from a script. Speak them out loud as you remember them. This helps your natural voice come through. You'll notice your own pauses, word choices, and emotions. Record yourself and listen back, not to judge, but to discover your rhythm. Do you speak softly? Do you laugh before the punchline? Do you pause when talking about emotional moments? That's your style. Celebrate it. Use the words you actually say in life. Don't try to sound academic. Don't force long sentences. If you normally say, "That moment hit me hard," say that. If you say, "I was like," wow, use it. Your truth sounds better in your own words. Watch your reactions, not your mistakes. When people listen to your story, do they smile? Do they nod? Do they stay quiet? That means they're with you. Forget the grammar for a moment. Focus on the connection. Keep practicing, one story at a time. With each story you tell, you'll get closer to your natural voice, your confident voice, your true English voice. And here's what's beautiful. That voice will not sound like anyone else. It will sound like someone who has lived, loved, tried, failed, learned, and still keeps going. It will sound like you. So stop asking, "Do I sound native?" and start asking, "Do I sound honest? Do I sound like myself? Do I feel free when I speak?" Asterisk, that's the voice that people trust. That's the voice that connects. That's the voice that grows with every story you tell. So go find it, speak it, build it, sentence by sentence, story by story, and let the world hear your English. How to use storytelling to inspire others and build connection. Here's something I've learned after years of practicing English. The most powerful stories are not the ones that make you look good. They're the ones that make others feel seen. Because storytelling isn't just about you. It's about us. It's about creating a bridge between your life and someone else's heart. Let me tell you what happened one time. I was sitting in a small English group. Just 5 people. We were all from different countries, different lives, different reasons for learning English. The topic was a lesson you learned the hard way. When it was my turn, I almost passed. But something in me said, "Just share." So I told a simple story. When I was younger, I promised a friend I would visit him. He waited for me all day, but I never showed up. I forgot. He never spoke to me again. I learned that keeping promises is not just about words. It's about respect. I spoke slowly, honestly, and when I finished, the room was silent. Then one woman said, "That reminded me of my father." Another said, "That's why I never make promises now, unless I mean them." That day, I didn't teach English. I didn't use big vocabulary, but I connected, and I inspired reflection. That's what storytelling does. It doesn't need lights or applause. Just a quiet room, an honest voice, and a moment that matters. So how can you inspire others with your stories? Speak with heart, not ego. Don't try to impress. Try to connect. Instead of saying, "I did this amazing thing," say, "I went through something that changed me." That's what people feel. Share your growth. People are not inspired by perfection. They're inspired by progress. Tell the truth about your fears, your failures, your lessons. Then show how you kept going. Be specific. Don't just say, "I had a hard time." Say, "I cried in the bathroom after failing my first English test. But the next morning, I got up and studied again." That kind of truth creates a mirror for others. They see themselves in your story. Let silence do its work. When you tell something deep, pause. Don't rush the next line. Let the listener breathe with you, feel with you. That's where the power is. Don't wait until you're fluent. You don't need perfect grammar to inspire someone. You just need to mean it. Your story, told with feeling, in simple English, can change someone's life. So the next time someone says, "Tell me about yourself," don't list facts. Tell a story. One that reveals a little bit of who you are. One that leaves a mark. Because when you use your English to open a door, you give someone else the courage to walk through it too. And that is how you build real connection. Turning everyday practice into lifelong storytelling mastery. Let me tell you the truth. You don't master storytelling in a week. You don't become fluent in a month. You don't build confidence in one moment. But you can change everything if you make storytelling a part of your everyday life. No pressure, no perfection, just practice, one small story at a time. That's how I did it. Not in a classroom, not with a teacher watching, but in the quiet, ordinary moments of my day. I would walk home and tell the story of my day in English, just to myself. I'd say things like, "Today was difficult. I spilled coffee on my shirt before a meeting, but somehow that made people laugh. And the rest of the day felt lighter." No one heard that story, but it made me better. Every single time I practiced like this, my voice got clearer, my rhythm got smoother, and my confidence grew. This wasn't about performing. It was about becoming. So if you want to master storytelling in English, here's how you do it. Simply, quietly, daily. Choose one story moment each day. Not a big event. Just something real. Maybe you helped your child with homework. Maybe you lost your keys. Maybe you saw a beautiful sky. That's enough. Speak it out loud in English. You don't need to record it. You don't need to share it. Just speak it. You can do it while cooking, while brushing your teeth, while lying in bed. Focus on emotion, not perfection. Don't worry about grammar. Ask yourself, what did I feel? What did I learn? What do I want to remember? Then say that. Even if your English is broken, repeat and reshape it. Say it again, a little differently. Try using a new word. Try shortening it. Try expanding the feeling. This helps you find your style and your voice. Let it grow into something bigger. One day, you'll use that story in a conversation, in a class, in a job interview, in a speech, and when that moment comes, you won't be scared because you've already told it 100 times in the quiet, to yourself, from the heart. That's how mastery is built. Not all at once, but slowly, gently, daily. So I want you to make a promise to yourself right now, every day. I will find one story worth telling, even if it's short, even if no one hears it, because your voice matters, your experience matters. And with each story you speak, you are shaping the storyteller you are becoming. This isn't just about English. It's about who you are. And your story. It's still being written. Every single day, the final message, your voice, is your gift. If you've listened this far, if you've walked through this journey with me, story by story, word by word, then you already know something powerful. You don't need to wait anymore. Not to be perfect, not to sound native, not to be good enough, because everything you need is already inside you. Your stories, your emotions, your moments, your heart. You see, language is not just grammar. It's not just pronunciation. It's not just rules. Language is expression. And your English becomes beautiful, not when it's correct, but when it's true. So here's what I want you to remember. Your voice is your gift, and storytelling is how you open it. Every time you share a memory in English, you're building connection. Every time you describe a small moment with feeling, you're building confidence. Every time you speak your truth, no matter how simple the words, you're becoming more fluent in the most important way, fluent in being yourself. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to express something real. You don't need 10,000 words. You just need the right ones. The ones that come from your experience, your perspective, your heart. So go tell your story out loud, in writing, in practice, in public, in private. And let it change you. Because storytelling isn't just about learning English. It's about remembering who you are. It's about choosing to be seen, to be heard, to be known. One story at a time. So wherever you are on your journey, beginner, intermediate, or advanced, I hope this episode reminds you of this simple truth. You don't need to wait to speak beautifully. You just need to speak honestly, because that is always beautiful. Thank you for walking with me. Thank you for listening. And most of all, thank you for being brave enough to tell your story. The world is waiting to hear it.